Hi, welcome to Fabric Chicks Demo Monday. We have Christy Lee here today, and she's from Christy Lee's from Fallon, Nevada. Um, so, anyways, girls, I'm happy to film myself because Roger had to go to the post office and UPS store because nobody picked up all your guys' packages. So here we are filming ourselves. Christy had a great idea today. Hi, Brenda, how are you? So Christy, why did you want to talk about long arming today?
Well, I think like a lot of people don't understand like what goes into it and why we charge the things that we charge. And also, I think they also don't understand like we're only one person. Like we're only one person and we can only do so many quilts at one time. You know, so many, well, you can do two because you've got it automatic and another one, but not me. I can only do one at a time. But I think like a lot of people bring in their quilts and they don't understand like there has to be certain prerequisites for us to put it on the long arm machine. And then I had one lady tell me that I just wanted to keep my batting. Like I just wanted to keep her extra batting because that's why I was asking for 3 extra inches on each side.
Oh, don't you give it back to them when you're done?
Yes, I do.
Yeah,
I
they get
do.
it all back.
But she was a new person and she didn't
Okay.
understand why she had to pay to have extra 3 inches on every side. And even when I showed her, I didn't really show her my long arm, but I tried to explain it to her. She just still didn't get the concept. So I think a lot of people don't understand like what our business really is. I mean, they understand that we quilt the quilts, but they don't understand like the time and effort and the training actually that goes into it, especially like for somebody like you who does custom quilts. So
For sure. Okay, so ladies, welcome those of you who are just joining us. Christy's here to help answer all your questions about long arm quilting. So, Christy, I'm gonna feature you so that you can show your long arm, and then I'll go ahead and show mine. It's kind of crazy, girls, because Roger had to go to the post office and UPS store because they didn't pick up today. So I'm filming myself. So tell us about the long arm in case there are some people on that don't know what a long arm is.
okay, long arm is basically a machine with a certain size. Well, let me change my camera really quick. How do I do that? Under more?
Under settings.
Okay, let me go to the
Under
back
settings,
camera.
it will have camera
Okay,
reverse. There you go.
so this is my long arm. I named her Princess Leia. As you can see, she has a Princess Leia sticker on her. It's kind of common for some long armers to name their long arms. I know that sounds kind of crazy, but you guys name your machines, right? Um, so Princess Leia, she has a 24-inch throat length, and they come in. How big is yours, Beth? Is yours 30?
I
Big
think
one.
I have a 26 and a 22, maybe.
Okay,
I didn't
so
want
mine's
the 30 because they said even if you have long man arms, you won't be able to reach the back in case you have to rip out.
right. Well, I tried a 30 and I could not reach it. Like I'm so short anyways, I'm only 5'3". But like literally even with me bending over and reaching, I couldn't reach the back leader bar. Um so the basic parts of it are, you have your back leader and you have your front leader. And what you do is you attach the quilt to the back and the quilt to the front. And some machines require you to sew them on, right, Beth? I've never had to do that because I have snaps. It
I
just
have the
snaps
snaps
onto.
also. Some people don't want to invest in the snaps, so they have zippers or they pin. I used to pin for years. I pinned.
See, I've never had to do that either. Was that terrible or was it
No,
easy?
but you think you're saving money because the clamps are so expensive, but in the long run, it saves you so much time.
Yeah. Um, so anyways, this is an Nova M24. It's one of their newer models. Everything is done via touchscreen on the machine. You can set your stitch length. You can set. There's so many options on there. It's crazy. I don't think I've ever used all of them. Have you, Beth? I don't
No,
know.
for sure not. And I don't do computerized custom quilting either because that's like a
No,
whole nother program to learn.
right. And that's kind of what I do, and I think it takes way longer than what you do. Beth does custom quilting, just moving the machine herself, and basically it's just moving the machine like this. I don't know if any of y'all have tried them out at quilt shows. I tried out probably, I don't know, 30 machines before I decided this was the one for me, because they all a little bit different. So, other than that, also I pulled up, this is my computer because mine is computerized. This is a quilt I was working on. I pulled up the design just so you guys can see how many starts and stops I had to do individually just for that small part.
I'm just going to say that is insane. Like that makes my skin crawl, really.
Does it?
Yes, yes.
Well, it really wasn't that bad. The long arms are amazing. They can map out certain parts of your quilt, and you can quilt little sections, like this right here. I manually put that in, and then it will quilt out that one little section, and you go little section by section. And if anybody tells you they're doing computerized custom quilting, that's what this is. So they take out one little section of your quilt, they'll map it out physically with the machine. Then they'll go to the computer, they'll insert the diagram or whatever graphic you want, and then they stitch out that one little section. And then they do the next.
So that is literally like a 12-inch block or something?
No, this is about a 40 by 40.
Okay.
You can make it, like normally when I'm working on something like this, I'll make it like really, I'll enlarge it like that. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And you can see down there where the blue thing is, that's where I actually mapped out a section to put in my next quilting design.
So do you have to roll your quilt back and forth?
No, because you can start at no more than you normally roll it. You start at the top of the design. Sorry.
So Kathleen, this is super complicated because it's custom. So a lot of long armors will only do edge to edge, which is not nearly as complicated. And I'll show you that in a second.
So this is like you start at the top corner. Let's say you start on the left. That's the left-hand corner of your quilt. So when you load it in, like just like your quilts that you do on your, you say it's 40 by 40, right? You put those dimensions in. So it creates the 40 by 40 block for you. So then you start at the top and you physically move your machine like you're custom quilting, but you're using these things called pins. And and these are the little pins, those little blue dots. And you pin off the area and then you upload the design you want, insert it, and then start the stitching. Does that make sense at all?
Yeah. So each one of those squares is equivalent to 4 inches, right?
Correct.
Just so they can get an idea of what it actually looks like.
Correct.
So each square in the grid is equivalent to 4 inches.
Correct. Yes. So when people charge you more for custom quilting, that's why. This quilt, when I finished from top to bottom, it probably took me 20 hours for a 40 by 40 to finish.
Which is insane. Emily, I agree. What Christy is doing is super intimidating, and it does take a ton of research and practice. Like it's not like learning the computer the way Christy does, because we have the same programs. And I would not even attempt to do that because it is so far over my head.
But you could. I mean, it's not like you couldn't do it.
Well, I could, but I wouldn't be able to do anything else.
Well, that's true. See, the difference between Beth and I is I don't have a store to run. This is all I do. And so it's a big difference between her time and my time. And even then, I'm only one person. So I can only do so many at a time too. So you have to kind of think about that and divide 20 hours by what I charge you and realize I'm not making a whole lot of money. You may think I'm making a ton of money, but it really isn't if you count the amount of hours that went into this.
Well, and not to mention the price that you invested in your machine.
Yeah, and I think that's important to share too. And I don't mind sharing how much mine was. My brand new one, which I bought 2 years ago, was $46,000. So I think that's important for people to realize that, what is it doing? Oh, there, my thumb. It's important to realize like there's a lot of money that goes into these things too. It's not just a lot of expense, I guess is what I'm saying.
Well, and sometimes you can think that you're getting a quilt done super fast, and then you realize that something has gone wrong, and now you have to spend 10 hours ripping out everything and starting all over.
Right, exactly. And I have done that like so many times, and I know you have too, because we've commiserated about it several times. And also, like, I think it's important to tell people, so it's the cost of your machine, plus I know I have to pay insurance. So I pay insurance monthly just to not only protect my machining, it's like, you know, natural disasters or whatever, but also your quilts when you bring them. So if something happens to them, that they're covered. Um, so I have that. Plus, I just did my taxes, and I think I spent close to $1,200 to $1,500 on, just because I took classes on free motion quilting, because I want to be able to be as good as Beth someday. So, I mean, there's a lot of extra expenses that go on to it that a lot of people who just bring their quilts to us don't understand. So,
Very, very true. Okay, so I'm going to show you, because Lynn asked, what is snapping? So snapping are these red snappers here, and there is you can see here, there's a pole that goes through your little leader, and then the top of it just snaps on to secure. So this is my back secured on. This is a quilt that I'm free motion quilting. So a lot of times I'm really one of the only ones in the area that does custom quilting. So this person didn't want an all over edge to edge, because she did all of this intense hand embroidery. So so this is one that I always there is no computer on this. It's just free motion. And then when I come over here to this one, it's very much like Christie's. It's basically the same thing, except
mm-hmm.
for that I'm not technically educated enough to know how to do all the custom that Christy does. So I just do, you can see it's an edge to edge here that I've done. And I've got a soldier quilt on here right now. So I've mostly quilted it. I have a one last row, and Roger just got here. So I'm going to have him come film, and I'm just going to start it. I have it all set up. So I've already cut it, the edges. I've already told the computer that I only want to go from this edge here to this edge here, and then I've cut off the bottom. So I'm just going to bring it down here. I'm going to tell the machine, here, you want to look at the computer here. I'm going to tell the machine to go, and it's going to say one or more of my patterns are outside the sewing area, and I'm going to say, yes, I know that. And then it's getting ready, it's thinking, it's telling the computer what to do. And I always pick up my bobbin thread so I don't get a nest at the bottom. And I'll just do a couple of stitches right where I'm starting. Then I'm going to hit the touch screen computer to tell it to go ahead. And then it's going to start. And then you can see it in motion where the red line is. That's where it's already sewn. So you can see it's just going along. My screen is blank, she says. Can you see it now? Can you see it, Christy?
Yeah, I can see it. I can see it great.
Lynn says my screen's blank.
No, you can see it.
Okay, so it is for those of you that are wondering about the long arm process. If you have any questions, type them in. I get people all the time, because we can sell the Anova machines. We have 3 of them, but most people are not going to take the time to learn the machines. Okay, so Roger, if you can just film over here so they can see what it looks like in action. So here it is. It's just going all by itself. And then Christy, I think up above, Brenda, I think, asked, how much do you charge?
So I charge 0.02 cents. I start at 0.02 cents for just basically what Beth is doing. That's a very simple pattern. It goes a little bit up if you get more detailed pattern, because one, it takes a lot longer and it takes a lot of thread. But I also think it's important, like, I don't really care who your long armor is. I mean, as far as like if you go to somebody else, whatever. But I encourage you to look at your bills, because like Beth and I kind of have the same philosophy. We charge basically per inch, and we don't charge you for bobbins or needles, or a lot of people will nickel and dime you. And I think we kind of have the same philosophy. I mean, we do charge for binding, right, Beth? And um, other things like that. But we don't charge, we charge a flat rate. For custom quilting, I do charge about like 6 cents, 0.06 per square inch for custom quilting. It kind of matters like also how intense it is, as far as that goes too. A lot of it has to do with the amount of hours put into it. I wish we could just say we make this much an hour, but it doesn't really equal out for different types of patterns, right, Beth?
No, it's hard. Like when somebody wants a definitive, how much is this going to cost? I always just give a really high quote because I don't really know until I get in and start quilting it how
Right.
much time it's going to take, how much, like how intense it's going to be. And most people that leave me their quilts to custom quilt, they always pretty much say, use your best judgment, do what you think's right. You're the expert. I'm leaving it up to you. So no pressure there at all. So really, I just give them a high ball figure, and then I keep track of my time.
Well, I also think that just so you guys realize, for those of you that do go to Beth, she is the most reasonable custom quilter out there. I give her a hard time all the time for how much she charges. You can ask her that.
I'm going to raise my prices, especially for Lynn Jenkins, because she said I don't charge enough either.
But I mean, now that we're on the subject of money, though, I think it's important because I'll tell you what I got for the first time ever, but I've only been doing this for almost 3 years now. Well, 2.5 years. This last Christmas, somebody gave me a Christmas bonus.
Oh.
And I was like, so I would like kind of like just talk about tipping a little bit. I think for you guys, this is a service. It's not like necessarily something that you, like, a tangible thing that you buy from the store, like fabric. If you're really happy with the service, I mean, I know most quilters would be just thrilled if you tip them, even if it's like $5, because it makes us feel good. Like we actually did a good job for you. What do you think, Beth?
It's true. In my entire lifetime of quilting, which has been like probably 12 or 14 years, I don't really know when I first got my, the first machine I bought was a 10 Lizzie because that's what I could afford. It cost me about $3,600. And I quilted on that 10 Lizzie for years. I will say having the more expensive machines that I've had for probably 6 years now, you're gonna get what you pay for.
Mm-hmm.
And the frustration level that I don't get anymore that I had with the 10 Lizzie is amazing. But that just is with anything. You're going to get what you pay for. But I literally have been tipped probably 5 times in my quilting career. I think if I hired a long armor who came and worked here, she would get tipped, is what I hear. But as a shop owner, people don't think of it. But most of the people that have tipped me, I will say, are from out of town, as in like Ohio and different places when they've come in and they've got somebody sick and they want a quilt quilted. And I think that's just more of a custom, maybe where they're from or something. But in our area, I really, I've talked to other long armors and they very rarely get tipped.
Kathleen wanted to know how to figure it out. So what you would do is you would take your quilt length by width, whatever that is, like 40 by 40, and you multiply that by each other. So you have all of the and you
so
multiply
40 by 40 would be 1,600.
And you multiply that by 0.02, and that's how much it would cost. Now, though, it doesn't include like if you want binding done, if you want batting, what else, Beth? Like,
if you want me to piece your backing,
yes.
And I know that piecing your backing is really a simple task, but by the time I get it out, I measure it, I cut the fabric, because people will just bring me like 8 yards of fabric for a baby quilt. Like sometimes it's ridiculous how much fabric they bring, and I've got to figure out and make sure I don't cut it wrong. that takes time. So it's kind of a mindless thing, sort of, but it's very time consuming. So I charge for piecing backing. I personally don't charge for trimming, but I only trim if you request it. And I don't know. That's it.
Well, that's the thing, is what I was going back to earlier, is there are people who will nickel and dime you. They'll charge you for needles. I've seen that. They'll charge you for bobbin. They'll charge you for thread. They'll charge, which I don't know how they calculate that. Do you? But
I think they average it by how many bobbins you use. They figure out how much, because like you can see how much is on a pre-wound bobbin. And right. I think that's how they calculate the thread charge. But I did have somebody that came in and she was like, "Oh, you're the other shop downtown is charging like 1.7 or something, but they're also charging per bobbin and a needle charge, and like when I went on their website and looked, there were all these additional charges."
No, they'll charge you for ironing if your quilt is not ironed when you bring it in. I mean, there's a lot of, I've seen, because I belong to a long arming group, I've seen what a lot of them charge, and I just don't do that either. I know you don't either. We just kind of do what basic services, I guess, like binding, and things like that.
Yeah.
I also think it's kind of important to cover, like when you bring it into the long arm, I think like you have to realize that we really do need like 2 to 3 inches on each side. I would say 3 inches would be best. For me, I prefer that. And it's because it fits on our machine easier, but also I like a little bit of binding, a little bit of on the side, so I can put a piece of fabric on and check my tension, which I can't do if there's no room. Like if you don't give me a little bit of room so I can put that piece of fabric on. And that's when we run into trouble, like when the tension goes wrong, which is our main bane of our existence, trying to figure out like how to fix it. But it's actually being done. If you don't leave room on the side for us to check it, it's being done on your quilt, because we don't know what the tension is going to be until it actually starts quilting.
Well, and you honestly don't know what can throw your tension off. It could be a tiny little thread stuck in your bobbin casing. It could be a tiny little piece of lint that you can only extract like using a business card and swiping it underneath your bobbin, overlapping. I mean, it really is pretty ridiculous what can offset your tension.
Right. And you know, another thing is like when you bring it in, check your borders, because like if your borders are wavy, we're not magicians. We can't make it, you know, we can do our best, right?
So wavy borders is probably as upsetting as tension issues. So most people don't measure their borders. You just, you know, cut the width of the fabric, sew them together, sew them on your quilt, and then chop them off. So that will create wavy borders. You really do need to measure your border and then measure your border fabric to the exact size. Pin it. I would start in the center and pin it out. But I mean, I have in my lifetime had to take in 3 inches on one border, like take a tuck of 3 inches, and it basically just looks like a seam. We're pretty good at making it work so most people don't notice, but that's additional time trying to get that to fit in. And sometimes I'll call the customer and say, "Hey, your border is just really off." Most of the time, though, customers will just say they don't care, because by the time they give it to me, they're over it. They don't want to see it again. That's why they just pay me to put the binding on, because they literally are over it. But wavy borders is more common than you would think. And it really does not take that much time to measure your borders.
Right. And I mean, that's when our machines also only do too much too. And if there's a nip or a tuck, it might pull that because it's wavy. And,
or the foot can get caught in it and rip the fabric. I mean, there's a lot of things that can happen when you're long arming. I personally try to stay upstairs with the long arms when they're going for customer quilts. If it's a shop sample, I don't really care too much because I can deal with it. I can always apply a butterfly on it or something. But when I have customer quilts, I try to stay up there because you never know. You can hear when the machine gets off. You can hear it. Like I've had customers sew pins into their piecing and not take them out. And then the needle, as it's stitching, hits it and shatters the needle. So there's all kinds of things that can happen. I mean, it's lots of moving parts.
Right.
Emily says, does it save that custom design for later use?
Yes, that was a saved design that I pulled up. But the problem with it is you can't use it on another quilt because it's so particular. Like on that quilt, the design was the petals it was a panel. So I couldn't measure it and exactly like line it up on my machine again. I would have to start from scratch and do it all over again. Does that answer?
Perfect. Okay. All right. Victor, we're glad you made it, even if you were late. Okay, so let's see. I'm trying to see if I've forgotten, if I've missed anybody. But I think, Lynn says she does believe in paying extra for expedited services.
Well, it's
Lynn,
true.
I'm taking notes, okay? I'm taking notes.
There is also something else I was just gonna say also, I guess it's easier if you guys bring us the quilt ironed. I don't know what your experience has been, Beth, but when it's ironed, it goes on the machine. We don't have to iron it. And sometimes when I'm really frustrated and if it's really terrible, I will charge for ironing. I've gotten a quilt that was almost like balled up in a bag.
Well, yeah, I usually will load the backing on before I leave the shop at night. Mm-hmm. And then I mist it with water and then it's pulled tight. So that kind of gets out all the wrinkles. I don't spend very rarely do I iron a quilt because I figure that's your job before you bring it to me.
Right.
Christy, do you have a bird?
Yes, I have a bird. She's being pretty quiet right now. So if she's bothering you, let me know.
No, you're fine. Kathleen, wide backs are totally worth it. I prefer wide backs, don't you, Christy?
Yes, 100%. And another thing is too, is like people have brought me backs that they piece a certain way on the back and they want it centered a certain way. And I can say I can try, but I can never promise that because it doesn't work that way. We can't measure it.
And it does not matter. I mean, I have measured it, I have marked it every which way, and it never comes out centered. And I don't know. I mean, I've even like pinned it the top to the back where the center is so that there's no way it can't line up centered, and it's still not centered.
Yes.
It's like the impossible task. So if you're going to piece your back, and I don't mind if the backs are pieced, but offset it. Then it looks artistically like you intended it to be that way, not that your long armor can't do it.
I think that's go ahead. No, sorry.
Go ahead.
No, I was just gonna say that's just really important because I think there's a lot of expectations on things that we can do, but we actually cannot. We can do our best, but that's all we can do. Like it's not a perfect science when it comes to like stuff like that, the backing and things like that.
And also you have to remember if you're piecing a lot of your backing, you're going to have different widths, and that's going to affect the tension also. And I meant to bring down a piece of batting because somebody just brought me some batting to use in their quilt. And there's so many seeds in it. Like Hobbs Heirloom, I think is the worst. There's, I used to think it was quaint because it was kind of rustic and fun. But now that I know that when my needle hits that seed, it can throw my whole bobbin casing out of whack, I cringe every time I use it. And I always feel like I should make a rule that I won't take Hobbs because they are literally the worst. But then I just take whatever you bring me and hope for the best.
I'm trying to convert everybody I know to bamboo. I'll be honest.
Me too. I love the bamboo. I especially love, have you been using the 6 ounce?
Mm-hmm.
That's my favorite. The one without a scrim.
Yeah, for sure. And everybody that has used it has loved it. So I encourage you to try it if you haven't. It won't cause the creases that when you fold it up, which is, I find amazing. Don't you?
I do. That is the reason I only use bamboo in my quilts. at PIQF, I was across from a thread company, and they had the most intensely quilted quilts. The quilting was amazing. But every year, and I was across from them for years and years and years, and it probably was the same quilts that were folded for months at a time. But the fold across their quilts was horrible. Like you're gonna spend all that money to have them quilted. You might as well spend. I want to say bamboo is like $2 more a yard, and it's 96 inches wide, so it's quite a significant amount of batting. It's $2 more a yard than 80/20.
And I think the benefits from using it are significant. So I would definitely buy some from Beth. She has a ton of it. Even if you're not, taking your quilts to the long armor, try it at home. I was going to talk about batting too, because I've gotten some of the worst batting, and I almost hate using it on a quilt that they've put so much time into, because it's not going to give them what they want in the end, right? So if you've spent all this money on fabric, which we all know how much fabric is, right? Don't go for a cheaper batting just because. I mean, you put a lot of time and effort to it. Use whatever batting you. What?
I don't know if you can see that, but I took a photo of the batting.
Yes, Hobbs is terrible. I don't know why people still use it.
They're like big kernels.
Uh-huh.
And if you have a quilt with white fabric, it's gonna show through.
Yes.
It's I don't know what they charge per yard for this, but I can't imagine that it's any less expensive than what we typically use. But it's crazy. It's like big kernels of cotton.
Right. I think we should also kind of talk about like when you bring it in. I know it's if you truly don't care what we do, then say do whatever you want. But if you have an idea of somewhat what you want it to end up like, please tell us, because we'd rather you be happy than bring us something and just be like, okay, just do whatever you want, and then you get it and it's not necessarily something that you wanted. I don't know. That's how I feel about it. I kind of honestly, Beth's very experienced. She's been doing this for years and years and years. But I kind of inwardly cringe a little bit when people say do whatever you want. Because I'm like, what if you put flowers on it and they hate flowers, right?
Right. Or no, that has happened to me before. But if you say do whatever you want, you better mean it.
Right. Mm-hmm. I totally feel that way. The other thing I think also is if you have a problem with somebody posting your quilt on social media, let them know. Because sometimes like I see the most beautiful quilts that people bring in, and I'm like, oh my gosh, I really want to post that at the time, but I didn't get their permission, so I don't feel comfortable doing that. I won't post anybody's quilts unless.
I do post them as I'm working on them, so I hope I haven't hurt anybody's feelings.
No, I just think it's important if you have a problem with it to let us know too, because if you don't tell me, then maybe that's permission to post. I don't know,
Right. And I think binding right now is 25 cents. I don't quote me on this because it's been a while, but I think it's like 12 cents to attach it, and then 25 cents inch, like just a running inch. 25 cents to hand sew it down, I think, but I could be wrong. And then Lynn says she had to fight her quilt back because it wasn't wide enough. The pattern called for 3 yards, but her fabric was directional, so she really needed 4 yards. She didn't realize she needed to really measure her backing fabric needs versus just going by what the pattern says. So she has a quilt that she's bringing in to be quilted that the Eiffel Towers are going sideways. So Lynn, I'm just going to say patterns sometimes direction, you always have to pay attention when you're using directional fabric. You're always going to need more. But I just think with backings, people will come in sometimes and they'll be like, oh, I've got a quilt that I'm doing and it's going to be 50 by 60, but I'm not sure because I might want to add another border on, but let me just get this much fabric. Or people will come in and they'll say, I need a backing. My quilt's going to be about this big by about this big. Really? Like, I can't sell you backing for that. I have no idea what this is. Like, I have no idea what that is. So I think backing it's a significant part, and it's a large investment in money that you might as well wait till your quilt is done, or buy extra if you want it to coordinate with the fabric that you're putting on the quilt top. Buy extra so you just have enough.
Yeah, I totally agree with all that. So Lynn asked, or no, who was it? Lynn. Kathleen Radar says, do you have customers sign a contract? So most of the time I do. Occasionally with friends, I do not. But definitely to somebody I don't know, I do. But I also took my initial introductory to long arm quilting was with Renee Haddadine out of Salt Lake City, and she hammered that into us, like, have them sign it. I don't know whether she's had serious problems, but she really hammered that into the students, like, make sure they sign a contract with everything, including like the thread color, that kind of thing. So I do. I don't know if Beth does. I know she has a form you fill out, but
I have an intake form, but I don't have people sign it, but I really should. I honestly, in all of my years, that I know of, I mean, people might not have been happy and just never said anything, but that I know of, I only had one lady that was super upset. You can still read that Google review, but she brought in a quilt that was like 3 inches longer on one side than the other. And I said to her, there's no way we can ease that in without taking a tuck. And so she said she was done. She'd already talked to the pattern designer. The pattern was written wrong. Everything about it was wrong. It was just this big mess. She was done with it. And for me to just do whatever needed to be done. So I custom quilted it, put the tuck in like it was a seam. And when she came to pick it up, she hated it. She hated it when she dropped it off. And sometimes you can't fix ugly. I mean, you just can't fix some mistakes. So really, that's the only time I've had a problem. Lynn, the way you do it is perfect because you iron it and you fold it on those big hangers. That's perfect. There's really not wrinkles in it when it gets here. And Dorothy says that special flower design would make a great whole cloth quilt. It would.
No, it would. I should try it sometime. It'd be a lot of starting and stopping though, because each section is, you know what it's like to start and stop. But
right.
Yeah.
Okay. Let's see. Oh, Victor's in the middle of playing bingo. Oh my goodness. Focus, Victor. Like, we're all important. 3 yards of wide back will cover any quilt, really. I mean, there's very few quilts that I quilt that are more than 108. It's true, Kathleen. We all need to I do need to do contracts. Christy, you're located where?
I'm in Fallon, Nevada, outside of Reno, about an hour outside of Reno. And I think you can mail them. Can't she mail them to you, Beth, if she wants to?
Yeah, we get quilts in the mail all the time.
Yeah. I do too. So don't, it's okay to mail. And even it's kind of better because then just let us know, like, let Beth know, like, what you want on a piece of paper. You know what I mean? Just fill out your own thing, what you are, like, thinking about. So,
right.
For sure. How do you feel about, like, your, Beth, how do you feel about, like, how many you do, what's your output or whatever?
Today I did not do any on the custom long arm because I had to get everything out from last Wednesday's sale. But typically, I did do 2 on the autopilot. One that had to be finished for a wedding, and then a soldier quilt because I can throw the soldier quilts on and then come downstairs. So I personally like to keep my machine running all day. So if I'm not able to stay upstairs because I don't have the staff anymore, it used to be that I stayed upstairs all the time, just long arming and ordering and paying bills. But now I am the only one, me and Roger are the only ones downstairs. So we don't get upstairs too often. So usually I come in on the weekends or like at 7:30 in the morning and quilt customer quilts. So yeah. The turnaround just kind of depends what else we have going on. But it's pretty reasonable. I mean, I've heard that some long armors are booked out a year. especially because of COVID. So many quilts were coming in. We are not a year. It just kind of depends on how much you whine, how fast it gets done. No,
so
I'm
what
just
would you
kidding.
say? What would you say
It's
is your
about a month turnaround.
Oh, a month. Okay.
Yeah.
And I think that's perfectly reasonable, honestly. I think a month is perfectly reasonable because
Unless
it's hard
you tell me no hurry, and then if you tell me no hurry, it could be forever. Phyllis says one of her quilts was 119 inches long that I quilted with 1 inch to spare on the machine. That is true. And I've even had some that have been too wide, and so I've just kind of folded over the edges, and I didn't quilt like the last 2 edges on each side. But my machine is what is 120 inches, I think, isn't it?
Mine's 12 foot. What's yours?
Yeah, I have a 12 foot and a 10 foot.
Okay, so we have the same width.
Yeah. But you can't go all the way to the outside edge.
No, you can't. You can't. And I had a quilt once I turned down because it was a lot wider than my machine.
Yeah.
Can't fit. Like it won't fit.
But if it's 120 inches this way and 180 inches this way, you can roll that extra.
Yeah.
So I think it is. Lynn says, "Yep, no hurry is definitely no hurry." It's true. Don't tell me not. Don't worry, no hurry on anything.
No, you all need to tell us. Like if it's you need it by a certain time, you need to say that. Like don't not say that because it's just we have a priority list, right, Beth?
It's true. It's true. It's well, and I will say sometimes Lynn is shocked because she'll bring me in a baby quilt, and for me, if you bring me in a king size quilt, it's gonna take longer because it's a lot more stressful because you've got to get it lined up more. It just takes a lot longer, and then it occupies the machine for a long time. But if you throw me a baby quilt, I might have time today after this live to get that baby quilt loaded and get it done where I don't have time to do a king size because we've got too many other things lined up this week. So it just kind of depends.
Right.
How much wider should the back of the quilt be than the front to have it long armed? What do you like, Christy?
Oh, the back of the quilt?
Yeah.
I like 3 inches on every side.
So it's a total of 6 inches.
Yeah.
Yeah. It has to be a minimum of 6 inches on the top and the bottom so that you can snap it on. And the sides, like Christy said, you do want extra on the sides in case your backing wasn't sewn straight or isn't cut straight. You just need that wiggle room because there's nothing worse than rolling halfway through the quilt and the backing being narrower in that center part and not having enough because somebody gave you, a 1/4 inch, or if it doesn't get lined up exactly straight. There's a lot of variables that can happen.
We have clips on the sides that have to clip for the tension of the backing on each side. So we have to have room. Like it has to be able to quilt, past the edge of your top. So if you don't give us any room, I don't know. I haven't had that bad of a problem yet. Have you? Yet?
No. I have. I've had it where the quilt top was exact.
But I won't do that. I would
say that I knew the person didn't really care. And so I just trimmed it. When I gave it back to them, I had it trimmed already. So they were, it probably was like a 1/4 inch off on one side. But so I don't worry too much about it. I just get them done.
Yeah. Well, you want to. I think if somebody gave me an exact, I would have to return it to them. Or I would say, here, I need another backing or something, like I don't know. That's me, though.
I'm more of a lot of times I have had to actually come down and get backings for them because the backing they gave me was smaller than the quilt.
Yeah. And that's
happened several times. Yeah.
I think also what people also need, I was trying to think of like everything people needed to know. And I think one thing is if you're going to enter a quilt in a show that you had somebody else quilted, like long arm, please give them credit. I think it's really, really important to give people credit who have actually quilted your quilts. How do you feel, Beth, about it?
That's a very true statement. And when you fill out the paperwork for the quilt show, if it's a professional quilt show, it's going to ask who quilted, because in today's times, most people don't quilt their own. But there are like guild shows sometimes don't ask, or if you put the kind of like you're showing your community quilts, with your friends, they don't ask. But I do think it's very important. If you go to any of the big shows, it does say who the long armor is.
Yeah.
What
And
about
I
showing
think,
extra fabric like muslin on the short ends? Yeah, that's fine, Lynn. It's totally fine. The problem is that we can't always predict where it's going to land on your backing. But if it's just like 3 or 4 inches, that we can get up out of the way. But sometimes people will bring me a quilt that has like 18 inches of a muslin leader sewn on. And it's like literally their quilt is like a half an inch bigger. And making sure that half an inch isn't sewn over to the muslin, doesn't get somewhere in on the back of the quilt, that is kind of tricky.
well, because it shrinks a little bit, especially if you have something that's heavily quilted, it's going to shrink a little bit.
Yeah.
So if it's right up there to the border, it's too hard to tell if it's going to shrink into your quilt.
For sure. For sure. Okay, girls. So do you have any other questions about long arming? Christy, I think that was a super smart idea. Oh, I know the other thing was that Christy posted was for the long armors that you do take your quilts to, sometimes people will bring charity quilts or donation quilts, and they'll want us as long armors to quilt their quilts for them. And I already have a charity that I do my donations to. I, in the last 15 years, have quilted almost 600 quilts for that cause. So your cause might not necessarily be my cause. So if you do want me to quilt a quilt that you're giving to charity, we're a business. So unless we've already discussed it, I guess that's my little spiel on that. Although I do, like the other day, somebody brought me in a memory quilt for a kid that was 3 and 6, and I did quilt that quilt for free because how do you charge somebody when their dad's died? But
well, what you're saying is basically don't get angry if we decide not to do it, because it's not necessarily like give us a choice. Like it's not, if you're going to give a quilt, you're giving it. So it's not necessarily, it's not necessarily for us to do for you, I guess is what I'm trying to say.
Right. We are a business. You have to remember that we don't get a state check. We don't get a like it. Even when people come in, they're like, "Oh, well, don't you give a guild discount?" No, because then I would be giving you 10% of my paycheck. So no, we don't do guild discounts. We don't do. We try to keep our prices very reasonable. It's just one of those things. All right, and Dawn, I do not do. I was kicked out of Quilts of Valor. We do quilts for soldiers and wounded veterans. So, our wounded soldiers and veterans is who we do quilts for. So we have our own Fabric Chicks. They just took 8 quilts down to Las Vegas to distribute this weekend. So yes. Okay, how about the minky question? If the backing is minky, does it have to be a different size backing than cotton, or no? So Kathleen, because minky, because we secure it on those leaders, it just needs to be the 3 inches on each side larger.
Yes.
And it honestly is, to me, not any harder to work with than regular cotton because it is secure. It's not like when you're working on it with your home machine and it's squiggly and moves around. It's very secure, so it doesn't move.
But I think it's important to realize with minky too, you're not going to totally see your thread because it's so, furry on the back.
Right.
So you'll still see like the outline of the quilting, but it's not going to be like your cotton that you use on the back.
Yeah, for sure. And Dorothy is very correct. And I did hear a horror story of this, that a gal actually admitted she made, she had the long armor quilt, the quilt she was donating. And then she made the comment to the long armor that the quilting was so beautiful, she was going to keep it to herself and give a different one to charity. So you just never know what's going on when you donate stuff.
I know. I couldn't believe that story. Honestly, I couldn't believe that story.
Yeah.
But
yeah.
Kathleen said it has been so informative, and I'm really glad that you guys got something out of this.
And if you have other topics that you want to discuss, that's kind of what Mondays are for. They're for demos and learning and all that good stuff. So if you have other topics, just shoot us an email or shoot us a text. I do have some giveaways. So we're going to do some giveaways. You guys can type in any other questions that come up to you. Okay, so we have, this is a super cute little fleece blanket that was donated here, still in the wrapper. So I'm just going to scroll and see who is the lucky winner. You can give it to charity or whatever you want. And I have Kathleen Rader. And remember, if you ever win something you don't want, because a lot of you are paying for shipping, just let me know and we'll give it to somebody else. So we have a charm pack of batiks. And I have Lynn Jenkins. Oh, see, girls, it pays to comment. Lynn Jenkins. Okay. And then I have a little coaster. Today is a good day to have a great day. And I have June Sterling. Are you getting any more comments, Christy? I have a little tiny charm pack. And remember, all of these goodies go in your baskets with your purchased items. We don't send out stuff just willy-nilly. We don't have time. We barely can get the stuff out that people are actually paying for. Okay, and then I have Victor.
Lynn says
a cute little, wait, what?
No, go ahead. Give it away.
Okay, I have a cute little bracelet, and it has these cute little charms that go into it. I've got Phyllis Ingmeyer. Oh, I don't have my little stuff, so I hope you guys don't give it back to me or we'll have a lot of things crossed off. Okay, and then I have a spool of ribbon, like 1/8-inch ribbon. And, oops, Victor already won something. Emily McParland. Sorry about that. Okay, and then I think that is it for the giveaways. I do have a couple auction items. Let me see. Victor must be losing at bingo. Well, don't worry, Victor, because you won a little charmy pack. Well, it's not a charm pack. What is it called? I don't know. Christy, I don't know. Okay. I'm going to call you as soon as this is over. Okay, Peggy, call me. Very informative. Oh my gosh. Lynn Jenkins has several quilts from the retreat she needs quilted now. She did. She was very prolific. She got a lot of stuff done at the retreat. Okay, so I am going to, those are, let's see. We have 6 minutes. So I have a couple of auction items. I have, all right, Christy, you keep, mini charms. You're right. You girls are right. Mini charms. Okay, I have a quilt kit here, S122, and the bid is starting at $40. Thank you, June. Okay, so the bid is starting at $40. It was originally $99.95. And it is for the brown colorway of Western Album. And it has all the fabric that you need. It's a cute panel. Oh, it's really cute.
It's super cute. I wanted to keep it.
Did you? Oh, yeah. Yeah, it's super cute. It's like a double panel. So you've got all of these panels. Oops, it's upside down.
It's like super unique. I don't remember ever seeing that before.
Me neither. I never saw this fabric one. Who is it by?
I don't remember, but it was super cute.
Blank Quilting. So all of those blocks are going to be fussy cut into these panels here.
And
So
plus,
the
you don't
quilt's
really
going to be
see.
66 by 78, and that's a really pretty big piece of fabric.
It's a lot of fabric, if I remember right.
Okay, so we've got Marion Bishop at $40. Bill says, hang on to my winnings. I know there was something I was going to order, but I can't remember now. Okay, just let us know, Phyllis. All right, so we're at $40 for $45, Phyllis. All right, girls, you duke that out. And then I have S159 is starting at $10. And it is a, I wonder what it was going to make. It looks like a fat quarter. Nope, a quarter yard of fabric, and then a bunch of batik jelly roll strips.
I think there's 20. I think we counted it, or there's 15 or 20 strips. So I have no idea.
Okay, so S159 is starting at $10. S159 is starting at $10. And then while you guys are duking that out, I want to just show you how cute this is. So Connie's not on, is she? Connie Wiggins?
I don't think so.
Okay, I found one jelly roll for her. Okay, so Stephanie Morris, who was at the retreat, she saw Kathy Holden doing all of the yo-yos, and she said that she had, well, I don't know, a family member went to prison and they had to go clean out her house. And so she had this yo-yo quilt that has no meaning to her, so she doesn't want it. So I said, oh, I would love it. It happens to be my colors. And when she dropped it off, she says, oh, you can take that and cut it up, do all kinds of fun stuff with it. It's literally in mint condition. Look at how fabulous this is. Like, this was worth all the headaches of the retreat. It's ginormous. It's like king size. Look at all that work. And they're all hand stitched. So I don't know where I'm going to put it, but I am going to enjoy it for the rest of my life. I just had to, oh, lucky Roger. I just had to show you how amazing. Oh, maybe I'll leave it at the shop because it matches the building.
We could do a yo-yo
right,
display.
How to show you girls that. All right, let's see. What are we at? Phyllis, it is so beautiful. I know, girls, it's so amazing. I cannot cut it up ever. It really is a treasure. If you're watching, Stephanie, thank you. That was like the best gift. Okay, what are we at? 159 is at $21 and 122.
159 is at $25. Yeah.
Phyllis Holmes is at $25. And then 150. Okay, 122 for the Western quilt is at
$51, Marion Bishop.
Okay, girls, get some comments in there. Wasn't Victor going to make a yo-yo dress? Dorothy, Victor is still going to make a yo-yo dress. He's just not sure if he's going to go to the event that he was going to wear it at, but he's definitely going to make it. It's going to be reds and blacks. It's going to be beautiful. Victor, we can hardly wait to see it, for real. Those are all the little tidbits that you get when we're doing classes. You know everything going on. Okay, so let's see. 159, get your final bids in, okay? Because Roger has given me that look. We have like 30 seconds till this is ending. Wednesday, we do have a live at... you tell us to cut up our canvas and you won't cut up your yo-yo quilt. Yes, that is a true statement, Barb. I have canvas galore. I have piles of canvas. I only have one yo-yo quilt. Okay, so let's see. We're at 159 is at $21 going once. Get your comments in. We do have the best sew along tomorrow at 4:30 to 6:30. So if you I'll send out the link right now before we go home. you should get that. 4:30 to 6:30, the Beth quilt. What else do we have?
I think that's it this week.
Okay. Oh, Dorothy said her husband's the one who said not to cut up the cantha. Okay, so if you have an issue cutting up the cantha, it's because you don't own enough. Buy another one, buy a few more, and then you won't have any problems cutting them up whatsoever. I do have about 15 or 20 more silk ones coming in. Should be Thursday. Okay, 159 is at 25 to Phyllis. Okay, and then what is the other one? Thank you, Victor, for keeping me straight. Victor, oops, I put Victor. It's really Phyllis Holmes, I think, right?
Yes.
Holmes is 25. And then what is S122?
Marion Bishop 51.
Marion Bishop 51. Okay, perfect. Kathleen, I saw them as scarves also, not the silk ones, but the cotton ones. Kathleen, when you were here visiting, did you go to Blessed Mess or Beautiful Mess or something? It's a new vintage store in Carson, south end of Carson. Has such fun stuff, but they had a ton of the scarves, a ton of the canthas cut up as scarves. And they were selling them for $24. So with your cantha, you could they were 9 inches. I measured them on my arm so that I would know what size to tell you. You guys could probably make 6 or 8 of them out of one cantha. So for $39, you could make 6 times 24. You could get rich making them. All right, Roger just snorted because nothing we do is going to make us rich. Lynn says it's a true statement. The more canthas you own, the more willing you are to cut them up. They're super fun, and once you cut them up, it's like addictive. You think of all kinds of things you can do with them: placemats, table runners, pillows, jackets. I mean, you could do anything with them. Okay, so that's all. We're 2 minutes over. Roger's going to be upset. What is tomorrow's late class? It's the Mary Beatty. It's the Beth Stitch Along for the in a world of Karens, be a Beth. It's that quilt there that we're doing from Yellowstone. So it's 4:30 to 6:30. All right. If you girls don't have any other questions, we're gonna call it a night. Thank you, Christy, for coming on and letting us get all that knowledge from you. We will talk to you guys soon. All right. Have a good night. Go get go sew. Go get some sewing done. Have a good night. We'll see you Wednesday at 4.
Good night.
Bye.
Bye.